Good day, and welcome to another episode of Agent X11 Hollywood Dark Journalist. Another light in this darkened world. I am your host, Penny L.A. Shepherd, and I am Agent X11. My co-hosts are David Zublik, Heather Day, Joan Renee, Chris Montgomery, Skip Press, Tom Althouse, Jessica Garza, Edward Medallion, Dr. Keith Abloh, and TJ Ward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
Agent X11 Hollywood Dark Journalist begins now. And welcome to another episode of Agent X11 Hollywood Dark Journalist. My name is Penny L.A. Shepherd. I am Agent X11. I'm joined by my co-host Heather Day, Chris Montgomery, Ian Trottier, and our guest Ralph Pezzulo. Thank you for joining us, Ralph. Chris, would you like to introduce Ralph?
Ralph has got a fantastic book. I've been trying to read through some of his history on everything for the last week since we were on in the middle of everything else I've been going on. Ralph, you have such an interesting background in all of this, all the way back to foreign service with your family, the books you've done, all of it. Fantastic. I can't wait to get into the discussion today. We are 1 week away from the first anniversary of the start of the Golden Age of America, and what a year it's been. And now today we get to talk about Venezuela, Iran, probably a little bit of Minnesota in there because of Ian's background. I think Minnesota's got a little bit of an issue for us. It's going to be a fun hour.
Yes, well, we are definitely at a crossroads in American history. Agent X11 welcomes you to Patriot Crossroads with Chris Montgomery.
Walking through the crossroads, feeling lost. Watching patriots, I know what the freedom's cost. Broken promises that shattered the night. Stars and stripes will burn down in the fight. Patriot at the crossroads, here I stand. Looking for the signs I can't understand. I'm marching forward to an unknown land with a faithful heart and an American plan. Silent waves smash against the worn out shore. I see dreams of glory, but
Agent X11's Patriot Crossroads with Chris Montgomery begins now.
So, Ralph, do you want to tell us a little bit about your book and a little bit about your background as we get started?
Sure. My background is I was born in New York City. My dad was a high school teacher. When I was 5 years old, he took the exam and joined the diplomatic corps of the United States. We lived started an adventure there, living in all over the world, Mexico, Vietnam, Guatemala, Bolivia, Colombia, Nicaragua. And I went into journalism. I started in journalism, working for Associated Press, became a playwright, and started writing books. At this point, I've written over 30 books. A lot of them having a lot of them having to do with intelligence work and U.S. foreign policy and how it's carried out in different countries. And yeah, that's my background.
So what is your favorite place you've ever lived and been able to experience?
My favorite place, I was about 11, 12 years old, was Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
It was during the war, so it was a kind of a very dangerous place. But I love the people. I love the culture. Just a very special place.
Okay. And so it was going to be, there's a lot been going on in your background in foreign service and that time in the world to now. It's an interesting time for you, probably with a lot of perspectives of all of it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've recently put out this book, Stolen Elections, the takedown of democracies worldwide, about last 2004, about April or May. I had a friend from the DEA who was visiting Los Angeles, and he said, I want you to meet the most successful DEA source in history, most interesting man that I know. I met him for lunch, and I said, what are you working on these days? And he said, election fraud. He said, actually, if you're not busy tomorrow, I would like to show you a 3-hour presentation that me and my partner have put together. And so I went to a house in Malibu, and he showed me this mind-blowing presentation. It turned out that his partner was Gary Burnson, who's an ex-CIA operations officer, somebody that I had written a best-selling book with called Jawbreaker, because Gary was the guy who, after 9/11, was tasked with organizing teams, CIA special forces teams, to go into Afghanistan and try to overthrow the Taliban while the military was sort of preparing. And they were so successful that within 3 weeks, with the help of U.S. airstrikes, they had overthrown the Taliban, and they were chasing bin Laden, who was going southeast in Afghanistan. They chased him into the mountains of Tora Bora, and they had him pinned down there. But the U.S. military would not deploy Rangers to block his exit, and he ended up escaping into Pakistan. So anyway, Gary and this other gentleman who I met, Martin Rodil is his name, they had conducted a 4-year investigation into election fraud. How this came about is that they were they're government whistleblowers. So they were working in Venezuela, looking for funds that from drug deals, from money laundering deals. And they had recruited sources. So Venezuela, for those who don't know, is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of natural resources. It has the highest oil reserves in the world. In 1993, a military man named Hugo Chavez was elected president, and he turned into it was like a Mondami. He came in as a populist. And he turned out to have a very socialist communist agenda. And he started expropriating oil companies and mineral companies. And anyway, he ended up turning the military into a drug cartel called the Cartel del Soles, which today is the biggest transnational criminal organization in the world. They control all drug sales, all drug trafficking in the Western Hemisphere, and they also do a lot of drug trafficking to the Middle East and Europe. The cartel makes estimated between $2 and $3 trillion a year. Venezuela also makes trillions of dollars a year from oil sales, so they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what happened is that Gary and Martine, these two whistleblowers, they were recruiting sources in the cartel to lead them to, illegal profits from drug deals. And these sources kept telling them, like, yeah, we know where the money is. We know what banks it's deposited in. But we also know about the whole election fraud system. And Gary and Martine were not particularly interested in that until the 2020, just before the 2020 elections. And they noticed that there were there were, like a lot of us did, there were strange things going on during that campaign and so on. And so they asked them, well, tell us about the election fraud. Well, these gentlemen who were Venezuelan told them the story about how they had, in 2003, 2004, Hugo Chavez, who was the president, faced a referendum. And he was very close to Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro was sort of his father figure. And the Cubans went to Hugo Chavez and told him, you're going to lose the referendum. Like, we can tell from the polling that you're behind. And Hugo Chavez is like, well, what do I do? And they said, well, there's this new system of conducting elections using electronic voting machines. And maybe we can use those somehow and steal the election for you. And they went out and they hired 3 Venezuelan computer engineers, Antonio Mujica, Alfredo Jose Anzola, and Roger Piñate. And they developed software to run elections that they installed. At this point, there was no such thing as an election machine. They installed them in Olivetti touchscreen banking machines. Okay. And they conducted the election on electronic vote on these voting machines and were able to steal the election for Hugo Chavez.
Yeah.
Hugo Chavez and the Cubans were thrilled. They gave these 3 engineers $200 million. And they said, perfect this software and let's see if we can use it in other elections around the world. These gentlemen did. They formed a company called Smartmatic, and they started in the early 2000s. They used this. They were able to gain run elections, to gain the contracts to run elections in various countries in Latin America. And in those years, in the early 2000s, they stole elections for leftists, for friends of theirs, in Nicaragua for Daniel Ortega, in Argentina, in Ecuador, and in Bolivia for another leftist called Evo Morales. They were so successful that the Cubans and the Venezuelans and Hugo Chavez kept pouring more money into this. And they said, let's see if we can run an election in the United States, if this system will work in the United States. The first election that they ran in the United States was in 2006. It was the Democratic primary in Cook County, Illinois.
Wow.
From Hillary Clinton against Obama. Hillary Clinton, who had been a New York State senator, first lady, and so on, she was much better known than Barack Obama. She was way ahead in the polls. So these same three engineers, they set up in Cook County, and they were able to steal the election for Barack Obama using electronic voting machines with the software that they had created and had perfected over the years. And this was the first of hundreds of elections that they stole in the United States.
Mhm.
They set up a company. Their company was called Smartmatic. They through various kind of corporate shenanigans, they moved it from one company into another to try to hide the fact that these companies and this software was owned by Venezuela. So they went from Smartmatic. They acquired a company called Sequoia, which was a voting company. They installed their software in the Sequoia machines. In 2006, a female congressman from New York, Carol Mahoney, she examined this, and she went to the Treasury Department, and she said, this company is weird. I think they're owned by Venezuela, and they're winning election contracts in the United States, and they need to be examined. The Treasury Department conducted a forensic audit of the software, and they found that it was just rife with problems, that it was really designed to steal elections, and they rejected it. So the Venezuelans bought this other company, Sequoia. They migrated their software into the Sequoia machines, and then they applied for the contract to run elections in California. This was during the governorship of Arnold Schwarzenegger. They conducted another audit there, and again, they said, no, this software is garbage. It seems like it's got 14 back doors. It looks like it was designed to steal elections, and they rejected it. So the Venezuela, the three owners, they sold the company Sequoia to a very small election company in Canada called Dominion. And what they were basically doing is trying to hide the Venezuelan ownership, because in software, the most important thing is the source code. The source code is sort of the DNA of any software. And the source code all along was owned by Venezuela. It's in a vault. The Venezuela has a department called the Consejo Nacional Electoral. It's their election department. It runs all elections in Venezuela. And the source code is kept there. It's run there. So all these elections that appeared to be being run by companies like Smartmatic or Dominion were really being run in Venezuela using this software. And Dominion went about earning contracts from all the swing states in the United States. So today they own, I think, about 60% of the market. They are. What happened was, along the way, once Venezuela established this system, the Chinese became involved. They put money in it. The Russians became involved. Iran became involved, and Cuba had been involved from the beginning. So these are all countries who are interested in subverting our democracy. Like they're not going to take us on directly militarily, but they use a system that was developed in China. It's called unrestricted warfare. So it's basically you try to undermine a country, weaken a country from within. And they saw this as one method to do that. And so since 2008, they've been stealing elections, every election. They've been interfering in every one of our elections from 2008 up until 2024, where they tried to steal the election for Kamala Harris, but it was blocked using the same engineers that the whistleblowers had recruited.
So
they
we're
were able to block because they were using, the criminal cartel was using servers in Serbia. Okay. So they would create these, VPNs addresses in Serbia. So the steel, when people went and voted on one of their voting machines, all of the calculations were done virtually in a virtual tunnel and sent to a server in Serbia. So nobody could see what was going on. And these servers would beam back the results. So when you did an audit, all you're looking at are the results. They set this up very, very cleverly so that it was impossible to trace the steal. What happened in 2024 is the whistleblowers were able to, using like expert hackers, to shut down the server in Serbia. So the servers in Serbia were run by the Chinese. There were Huawei servers, and they were just massive.
So they were planning on having Harris win?
Yes, yes.
Oh my God.
So, Ralph, Ian, we get into, I've said and put out papers when I was in government that we're too big to take over militarily. I mean, we have the ideas of Red Dawn. The original one was the good one, not the remake. Of parachuting in, dividing the country, etc. But we've always said America's too big to overtake,
right?
And too diverse.
Yeah.
But then overtaking us through our elections and from within, we see exactly what's happening in Minnesota, of literally a internal battle by Somalia that's evidently funded by other people.
Yeah.
Now we have our elections. We know China, Venezuela, Cuba, Russia.
Well, Chris, just let me add to that, is that this was part of sort of the tools that they used. First was the election, the election software. They also had they were generating, like I said, they had tremendous money to work with. So they had the Venezuelans trained a group called Tren de la Agua, which we've heard of. These were a lot of them were criminals that were in their prison system, and they recruited the Venezuelan Cartel del Sol, the same drug cartel, would recruit these people, would actually train them. They put them through a whole training course, and then they deployed them into the United States. And their job was to, disrupt communities, cause chaos, demonstrate, all kinds of stuff like that. And then they also pump a lot of money into NGOs, non-governmental organizations, influence groups like the George Soros's Open Foundations, Open Society Foundation. Yeah.
Open Society.
So this is also a lot of the things that we're seeing in Minnesota, and we experience at the border. A lot of the agendas, the trans movement, and so on. All of these have been funded very heavily by the criminal cartel, and by the criminal cartel, I mean Venezuela, Cuba, China, Russia, and Iran. So it feeds into your point, Chris.
So how is this not a declaration of war against America?
It is. It is a war.
It is.
Yeah. And I think the Trump administration, they have looked at all of our evidence. They have looked at all, like I said, the whistleblowers did a 4-year. They had approached the Trump campaign in 2020 after the election, when it was obvious to a lot of people that the election had been tampered with. The results had been tampered with. The trouble is, they went to Rudolph Giuliani and Sidney Powell, and they told them, like, hey, we've recruited all these sources within the criminal cartel. We can tell what's going on, but we can't really. We're not prepared to present the results yet, because we have to. These are criminal investigators, so they know how to put together a criminal case. what happened is that Sidney Powell, the Trump administration was in such a rush to get this news out before the inauguration, that Sidney Powell went out and announced, "We found the Kraken." Remember?
Right.
This is
the Kraken.
This is the Kraken.
You just blew my mind, Ralph. And I don't know if you guys saw the training videos for the Somalian daycare, like in Somalian.
Yeah, sure.
It's so deep into the system. And
Yes.
I guess that falls under the NGO thing. Or not technically an NGO, but it's infiltrated deeply.
Right. Well, this is our enemies have been very, very clever. And they have also, the other part of it is that they have a lot of, they've turned a lot of members of our intelligence community, paid them off. They are also helping. So part of what the Trump administration is facing now is sort of finding the enemies within. The people.
Ralph, would Brennan be one of those enemies within?
Who's that? What'd you say?
Brennan? Would Brennan
sure.
be one of those enemies within?
Sure. Yeah.
So, Ian, your thoughts towards this, especially when we start considering Venezuela and the last couple of weeks there. Your thoughts, since you and I haven't had a chance to talk.
Yeah. So, and Ralph, nice to meet you. You and I have known each other for a couple of years now, I think. Ralph, much of it's probably about the connection because Smartmatic is headquartered in London. So what do you know about that? And then in regards to, I'm calling the communist axis of communism. That's basically what I'm calling this is an axis of communism that hinges on likely Havana now. And building through Venezuela, this history of Venezuela invading our election system, certainly invading our country, Venezuela invading our country on multiple fronts, but drugs and weapons, but this election system. John Brennan, since you and I would have last communicated, and John Brennan has been a topic of my research. The book is called High Stakes Treason. And it shows a number of things, but most critically that John Brennan allowed terror attacks domestically. He did that to enrich himself. That's the allegation in the book. But there's a meshing between the Analysis Corporation, which is a terrorist watch group, started in 1990, is called the Tip Off. And that's kind of basically a product of the database for the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in that war in the CIA. But what we're finding is this just a kind of quick segment, which is critical. Ryan Ruth, the guy that attempted to assassinate the president, 2024, he was involved in a visa program, trying to recruit Afghani soldiers to fight in Ukraine. You've mentioned Serbia, and just on that, there's a guy named Michael Springman, and Michael Springman was basically blowing the whistle in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, as he was a State Department worker, but he goes into the Jeddah office, and it's like basically 90% CIA, and he says, "Wait a second, I'm like one of 2 or 3 State Department. This is a state consulate."
Yeah.
And then he's finding that they're urging him to grant these visas to terrorists. 15, as a matter of fact, 15 of the 9/11 hijacker visas came out of John Brennan's jurisdiction in Saudi Arabia. 15, and many of them came through Springman. Yeah. And Roger Stone in his forward writes about, to his knowledge, 4, right? And so Springman now is what I'm understanding is that 15 are coming out of this Brennan jurisdiction. So Patrick Byrne, and I'm not sure if you know Patrick or not, Ralph, but Patrick, you do? Okay. So Patrick, in the past, 2-3 weeks, has been speaking to Alex Jones and a woman named Emerald Robinson. That's Lindell TV, Mike Lindell TV. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So Patrick has stated that he was a CIA asset, brought into the CIA back in 2006, and there's a quick overlapping there with a guy named David S. Cohen. He's the guy that recruited Patrick into the CIA. David became Brennan's number 2 when Brennan became the director of the CIA under Obama. And it looks like the Obama and Brennan connection goes back to Zygmunt Brzezinski. This is something I've spoken to about with Penny recently, and Pakistan. So there's a scrubbing. Brennan scrubs Obama's passport when between the years of Occidental and Columbia. Obama, Soetoro is his name, is allegedly a student at these places, and he spends a year in Pakistan. Well, that Brennan uses the TAC, the Analysis Corporation, to scrub passport info. So, what's that all about? But the reason I'm talking about this is because Belgrade, and according to Patrick, Brennan created and built a data center in Belgrade with this company you mentioned, Huawei, this Chinese company. Yeah. And it did exactly what you're talking about. It manipulated Dominion servers to sway the election in 2020. And then, as you've noted, they went in and took out that center. I think was the verbiage used by Bird, and I don't know what that meant. According to you, it's hacking, and that prevented Harris from getting in. But the thing that's always caught my eye, right? And Obama's visited London frequently over the past year. Cambridge University was very important with a guy named Stephen Halper, who was a CIA and FBI asset working with a guy named Richard Dearlove out of Cambridge. General Flynn falls into all that. So it's more. I'm quite interested in regards to, and we've got this foundation of Smartmatic, which later merges with Dominion, headquartered right now as something called Liberty Vote in Colorado. Right. And it just so happens to be that that's where Tina Peters is incarcerated, unfortunately. And, she was trying to help expose that fraud in Colorado. But what is the question I have for you? And thanks, Chris. The question I have for you is, what's the London connection? Why is it based in London? When did it start being based in London? Could there, in my curiosity, could there have been a push internationally, right? Because I kind of approach things from an umbrella standpoint of like USAID. USAID is funding Dominion servers. We know that. That's a United Nations organization. That's the United States giving money to the UN. So basically, it's like national suicide. We're rigging our own elections in that sense. What's this London connection? What do you know about that? Can you add to it at all?
Well, like I said, the Venezuelan ownership, the Venezuelans have tried over the years from the beginning to disguise the Venezuelan ownership and control of this software, right? So they have continually changed the name of these companies and moved their headquarters. Smartmatic is still registered in Boca Raton, Florida. They have the main office there. A couple of years ago, they moved their corporate offices to London. Now, what you brought up in terms of USAID, so when Elon Musk was doing when they had the Doge and they were looking for government corruption, one of the places that they went after right away was USAID. And what they found in USAID was something called CEPS. Now, CEPS is the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening. And they gave billions of dollars over the years. Basically, they were the marketing arm of Smartmatic. So what happened was that the Venezuelans and the criminal cartel, they decided, okay, we're going to use Dominion to run elections in the United States. And we're going to use Smartmatic to run elections in other countries around the world, except for Los Angeles County. They still run the elections in Los Angeles County. And that's why in Los Angeles and California, they'll never elect a Republican. It'll never happen as long as Smartmatic is running elections in that state and in that county.
I was going to ask you what's the status quo right now with Smartmatic in different elections. So I don't know if you know how it varies across the country, but
Yeah. Well, basically, the software has been migrated through practically every voting company in the United States that's used in the United States. So they control elections in the United States. The Venezuelans do, and the criminal cartel. Now, getting back to SEPs. Now, SEPs was acting they were giving grants that were going to promote this software in other countries. Now, I'm investigating this, and I'm writing a book about it now. But what happened was they were giving grants, U.S. money, through USAID, using embassies overseas to promote this software to other countries. And we know this because we have been contacted by presidents and electoral officials in other countries saying, like, for example, Georgia, which is near Russia, they had a referendum recently, and the results were just bizarre. Like, everybody, they were completely contrary to what people expected. And they did some investigation, and they came to us and said, something weird is going on here. And we were like, did you use Smartmatic voting machines? And they were like, yes. And it was promoted by the U.S. Embassy there.
Oh, wow.
So our embassies overseas, through this organization, SEPS, has been promoting, is almost acting like the marketing wing of this software. It now controls elections in 72 countries around the world.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
you know what you're bringing up is a very good point when it comes to technology
Yes.
and elections and legal systems. It seems like it should be illegal for us to use voting machines with software, based out of here. But of course, we all know the shell companies with LLCs and everything. So is there any legislation that's coming into play, or that we can protect ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, President Trump is aware of all this. Elon Musk is aware of all this. The plan is he's going to sign an executive order sometime soon and ban the use of all electronic voting machines in elections in the United States. So then it will be paper ballots and with IDs. And that's how, I mean, you talk to all the computer experts, you talk to Elon Musk, and he goes, look, there's no software system that you can develop that is completely safe, right? There are always backdoors. There are always, windows into the system. It has to be a physical ballot that can be recounted, right? And the people who vote have to have IDs. You can't just have people register and then be able to vote, because that's another method that they've used. So they let in a lot of people illegally into the country. As they come into the country, they register for a driver's license. Once they have a driver's license, they're on the state rolls. So then they can go to the state and apply for a mail-in ballot. Right?
But here's the problem I have, Ralph, in all of it, is we get deep into the exploitation becomes, and we're seeing this in Minnesota in part, states' rights versus federal rights. And states' rights and down to the county and the city have for long been allowed to control their own elections. This is not a federal level issue.
That's right.
And so, coming at it from that angle, I keep seeing this hope of a federal election system somewhere in place.
Yeah.
But yet, when the cities and down to, your local municipalities, even below your city, has control of their own elections. And that's where this root problem is at. How
a lot of local there's a lot of money. These people have a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So able to buy off a lot of local officials.
And they're cheaper to buy, let's be honest.
That's right. It is cheaper.
And so how do we get rid of the rot how exactly can Trump even do it when the fact is he truly has next to no say over how an election is done, and EO is not going to override that local election level type of stuff. Because technically, the only election that the president truly has any say over is over the electoral college at the congressional level, because and those ones are absolutely ballot counted.
Well, what they're planning to do. So this information that is in my book, this was all turned over to the Justice Department, to the Trump, to the FBI. They didn't want to see it during the Biden administration. It was presented to them.
Of course not.
We were told basically, forget about this, get out of the country, otherwise you're going to be arrested.
Wow.
Yes. In fact, Gary, one of the former CIA operations officer, who's sort of the head of this whole effort, he left the country.
He did?
Yes, he's back now, but we know that the FBI was investigating us, and that they were going to try to arrest us. Thank God, President Trump won. He started, we presented everything to him. He turned it over to the FBI and the Justice Department. They interviewed all of our sources and witnesses. They looked through all the data. They seized voting machines. They did a forensic analysis of voting machines, and they saw that all of the things that we said are true. It has also been corroborated by former members of the Chavez Maduro regime, including their director of intelligence, Hugo Carvajal, which the Biden administration had already arrested, but were trying to convict him of drug dealing, right? So that he would be locked away and talk. And we convinced the administration, you got to talk to this guy. Don't let them throw him in jail. And it turned out like he knew everything. He corroborated everything about the voting machines, about other listening centers that the Chinese and the Russians had set up in Venezuela, missiles that are in Venezuela that are, Iranian missiles that are capable of striking the United States, all kinds of other information, right? Other intelligence. But the Trump administration and President Trump, they are proceeding too slowly for my comfort to issue criminal indictments of a lot of these people. So they started 2 weeks ago. There were criminal indictments of, I forget how many, leaders of Tren de la Aragua. The press also, as we all know, the mainstream media is collaborating with the criminal cartel, whether they realize it or not. They didn't announce any of these indictments, but I've seen them. They've been issued. So they're slowly, because the Justice Department moves very slowly, they're going after these people. They've issued many subpoenas. They are and indictments are coming. So to answer your question, Chris, what the president plans to do is once he's able to show through these indictments that the whole Smartmatic Dominion system is corrupted, he's going to issue an executive order saying that no election machines are permitted in the United States, and therefore the states will have no choice, but to run elections by ballot.
But but you already have some of it in the country, so you're going to have to go at it from a tech end, not from a practical end. Then, if my understanding is right, correct?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
You'll have to go at it from the technology, banning a technology approach.
That's right.
Almost
going to ban the technology. Yes.
Essentially, as the ban on TikTok exists.
Exactly. So it's going to say they're going to be able to show that this technology is corrupted and that we cannot depend. And they're going to be able to show examples. They've done. you know, we know that the FBI has seized a tremendous amount of voting machines. These voting machines, by the way, are made in China. They're made in China. They are shipped to Taiwan. In Taiwan, the labels are switched, and it says that they're made in Taiwan, but they're really made in China. And then they install this Venezuelan created software. So, you know, here we have elections in the United States and all over the world that are run with voting machines made in China, with software installed.
Interesting. Because Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan. I know she has semiconductor business there, but I just find that very interesting.
Well, there's a lot. There are a lot of people who have been collaborating. This system has been in place, remember, since 2008. So they have had a lot of time to pay off the right people to spread their propaganda.
Right.
You know, they have a lot of money, trillions of dollars that they distribute through different associations, NGOs, influence groups, law firms, big law firms in Washington. It's a very powerful cartel, criminal cartel.
And forgive me if you already mentioned this, but does it have to do with the MAC address? I used to follow Doug Vogt. He passed away actually right after he put this out on YouTube, about the MAC address on the machine can be remotely accessed. So if you're the manufacturer, you have the MAC address, you can remotely access the machine and then use the software to basically just change the votes, which is what we all saw, right? Where all these votes just suddenly came in. And so I guess there's really no way around that. You can't change the MAC address of a machine, right? Once you receive it to wipe it, to make it safe. There's no way. It's just that we just have to get them out of here.
That's right.
It would be nice if we had stuff made in America.
They're in the current system, the Venezuelan system, there are 14 backdoors into the software.
Good God.
Create the software with backdoors. And the whole idea is that they're connected to modems and servers that are overseas. And so they move all the data to a virtual tunnel. So it's like a VPN. It doesn't even really exist. It's just in the cloud. They do their dirty work. They change results and they move. This is a very sophisticated. Now we have recruited a number of the 18 of the engineers who worked for Venezuela, who created this software and the source code. So they tell us exactly how they do it. And when they steal an election, like a presidential election, they start a year ahead of time. Because when they get the contract, when Dominion or Smartmatic gets the contract to control an election district, they get the voter logs. So they are basically given the authority to run the election in that district. And they know they only need certain key districts in the United States to steal an election. They know exactly what districts those are. And Dominion gets the contract in all those districts. There's something like 3,000 districts, voting districts in the United States, and like a dozen of them are key. They really determine the results of elections. So when
you've got dead people voting too. We need to clean the voter rolls as well.
What I'm getting at is when they get the contract, they get the voter logs. So they can figure out, okay, how many people can we in this district who are dead, who can we submit votes for? How many mail-in ballots do we need? How many this do we need? How many do we need to steal electronically? And they're so sophisticated. Like you can give them like in the 2020 election, Biden won in Colorado, and the way they did it, they showed us, is instead of shaving off, adding ballots in the blue districts, which were the cities, Colorado, Boulder, what they did is they shaved off votes in all the other districts where they knew Trump was going to win. So they're very, very sophisticated. They have hundreds of engineers. When they have an election, they have a whole, they call it, I forget what they have a Spanish word for it, in Caracas. It's called like the bubble. They have this huge center, and there are hundreds of engineers there. There are Iranian engineers, Chinese engineers.
Iranian?
Yes. In the 2020 election, the Iranian foreign minister was in Caracas watching the results of the election. Hugo Carvajal, who was the head of Venezuelan intelligence, has told us he had a monitor on his desk where he could watch the steal happening.
Wow.
So this isn't just like a couple of guys. This is a very, very sophisticated system with
legit army.
Yeah, with unrestricted resources.
Well, Ralph, I know you're going to be joining us on Agent X11 every other week. I'm going to try to jump in with you on those evening segments.
Sure.
Love to have you back over here, but I know if we only have a few minutes left today. How do we today? We are 10 months away from voting starting. 11 months away from an election right now. Under 11 months away from an election right now.
Yeah.
Less than 10 months away from early voting.
Yes.
How do we combat this today? We know right now that the only thing that the Democrats in the House are wanting is to retake their slim minority to a majority by 3 votes.
Yeah.
They have no platform. They have not even done an autopsy on the last election.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they know is that they hate Trump. They have nothing else to run on.
That's right.
How do we combat this today for 2026 midterm elections? What do we do from today on?
Well, I think that the main thing is awareness of what the problem is. That's why I urge everybody to read my book, Stolen Elections. All the data that the whistleblowers uncovered is in this book. This book has been read by everybody in the White House and the administration. The problem is right now, there is a fight going on within the administration because there are so many people who were collaborators with the criminal cartel who were bought off over the years and have found their way into the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. It's not just one. And so our effort has moved forward. It's moving forward, but it's constantly being slowed down by people in the administration or in different departments who are trying to stop it. But I think the president is clear and he has a plan. And like I said, it involves exposing this information and then outlawing all the use of all electronic voting machines in elections in the United States. But like I said, it's a battle, and it's kind of a constant battle because he's always, he's kind of a one-man government. Like he gives orders, he tells people to do things, and then it gets into into a department, and somebody like an assistant secretary or an assistant director of the FBI blocks things. And then you have to kind of root out this person, find out who they are, and then, proceed. So it's a slow, difficult process. And Chris, what you referred to, this is going to take, we have to save our elections now.
Right.
But in order to unroot these people and this corruption, it's going to take years. It's going to take a decade, because they are everywhere. It's not just the Democrats. It's the Republicans too. So many people have been corrupted by the system.
But when we look at the fact that if we do not hold on to the House, in November, and Mike Johnson is not the world's best Speaker of the House.
Right.
Mike Johnson is the modern day Jerry Ford. He's there because he's not disliked. He's not liked, he's there because he's not disliked.
Right.
Same reason Jerry Ford became president. So if we do not hold on to the House is going to turn into 2 years of nonstop impeachment.
Mhm.
That's all their goal is going to be for 2 years. The golden age of America is going to go down to the silver age and probably even the bronze age.
Well, I think I would say we're in a battle right now.
And so
Well,
but we know that that the federal government moves incredibly slow.
Right.
And so I fear what can we get done? We're already into, 42 states, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, have seasonal legislatures and assemblies in their each individual state. I think less than 8 of them have year-long House and Senates in their states. The rest are all seasonal, only through May. If it's not on the ballot before a year from now, we don't get to it. So the question is, how do we get there before November, and what do we do in these states? I know we're kind of running out of time today. And I would love to have you back even next week to kind of continue some of this discussion, to get more into your book. I have read it. I did a very quick read on it when Penny told me we were going to have you here. And I'd love to get more into this next week if we can.
Sure. I'm happy to.
Yeah. Heather, your thoughts?
First, I was thinking it's not going to help a lot, but whoever issues death certificates could notify voter registration somehow. That could be a simple thing we could do. But you blew my mind away, Ralph, and you're highlighting there is a war, and it's not just America. It seems like communism in general, fighting against democracy, which is ironically why the CIA was created, was to fight communism, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully they can follow that charter again. But I'm just blown away that Venezuela seems to be the hub of what is happening. I wasn't even aware of that, especially with the cartel and all the trafficking. So when he's doing these things with Venezuela, it means so much more than what most people are aware of. So thank you for that. And I do hope to see you next time.
That's really why he's going after the Maduro regime. He's aware of all this information. It's not just about, drug traffickers. It's much bigger than that. But like I said, even the CIA, there are a lot of people in the CIA who were compromised over the years. Cubans are very, very good at recruiting sources within our government.
And if I can take one more comment based on what you exactly just said. And they've probably heard the story before, but I was raised by a Navy SEAL, my stepfather. And the one mission he was allowed to tell me about was helping Batista escape from Cuba during the communist takeover. And he said that even people on his own team had defected. And so this is a common issue that people start to believe in it. It's a lie. Obviously, it turns into totalitarianism. And I've heard people in Venezuela are starving, and people here from Venezuela are grateful that Maduro has been captured. And so, hopefully we can just keep fighting against the lie.
Over 8 million people, Heather, fled that regime, and a mixture of some genuine political people that were being targeted, but then also we had the influx of the cartels within our country. Ralph, where can people I want to let everyone know we're starting a new series for Ralph, and that will be starting, it'll be every other Friday. And I want to thank Ian for making this connection. And we're going to be naming it after one of your books called Zero Footprint, because that's what I say. The CIA leaves no DNA at the crime scene except yours that they planted there. They leave no footprints whatsoever. And Ralph, where can people buy your books? You have so many books. Where can they buy them?
They're on Amazon. It's probably the best place to buy them, unfortunately. And I would urge everybody to read this, because this is the result of a 4-year investigation by these 2 whistleblowers who have done incredible work for the country and for the world. And it's Gary Burnson and Martine Rodil. And
I'd love to have them on your show as well. And you coming up in just a short period of time, you're also going to be on David Zublick's Damn Straight episode. We're going to give you as much as you can handle as far as our exposure from our team, because we absolutely adore you. Ian Trottier, where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me, same thing, Amazon. Get a copy of High Stakes Treason on Amazon. Twitter, Real Ian Trottier. Instagram and TikTok, Ian Trottier. Or you can go to iantrottier.com or highstakestreason.com.
And I'm going to be working on, I'm now working on like 7 shows. So I'll be working on the promo for those shows when we're off at the end of January. So I'll be changing up a lot of the promo. Heather Day, where can people find you?
Yeah, all over the web at Heather Day Music, except TikTok that recently permanently banned me for misinformation for sharing my science fiction novel, AI 2030. And I'm going to be spending more time on X now at Heather Day Music. And then I'm on the Trauma Triage team Wednesdays at 11 a.m. on the Agent X11 Rumble channel, my Rumble channel, Heather Day, that's growing, and on the Awake Nation Rumble channel. And right here on Wednesdays also.
I have to run because I'm knocking on the door.
Okay, so
Ralph,
I'll
thank
just
you
go ahead.
so much.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on Friday.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
And Chris Montgomery, where can people find you?
Every other Monday morning, 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern on the David Zublik Show. Every Wednesday on Agent X11 Patriot Crossroads, Legacy-inspired films, Legacy IF, first crypto-funded studio, launching the first crypto-funded studio for conservatives, for mainstream television content, going live this quarter. And wherever else Penny can fit me in on my never-ending schedule.
That's right. You guys are you're so cherished by me that I try to fit you in on as many things as I can, because your information is just solid and very, very important. This is important work.
This was incredible today, because when we're getting into, we spent 4 years just kind of wrapping up very quickly. I mean, Ralph, it was, I didn't want to ask Ralph any questions today because it was so incredible what he had to say. And Ian, your book and Ralph's book are both so incredible. I rarely get a chance to read and read a book, at least, from everything else I work on. But they were both so riveting and so actual. And it's incredible because we spent 4 years in this deep psyop telling us that there was no election fraud, that everything was fine, everything was above board. And now that we're getting to see this, and we've got to pray that Ralph's ideas and Ian's information can become real and out there and shared. And by real, I mean mass shared, because if we lose this in these 2 years, Reagan said clearly that we are only ever one generation away from the loss of freedom. And Venezuela saw this. And I'm right now working with a young man from Venezuela. We've talked about him on each of these shows, and seeing what they lost and why he's in exile here in the United States right now. And we're close to this. And I mean, thank God that we're just 1 week away from the first anniversary of the golden age of America, because I wouldn't be living here right now had we not had this. I was going to have to leave the country because of what they'd done to my friends, what they'd done to my legal work, and what they'd done to my consulting work. So we got to stop this someplace. But I know we are out of time. And so I will steal Penny's line. And since we are out of time, we are out of here. So this is
Shepherd out.
Dig out.
Everybody's out. Everybody's out. Get out of the pool. Just do it. Okay.
Have a good day, everybody.
Goodbye for today from Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist. We post new episodes daily. Check out our true crime episodes Wednesdays and Fridays. Don't forget to watch our main show, David Zubrick's Awake Nation, on the David Zubrick channel on Rumble, live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern.